Welcome students. So far we have created our snake game. In the game, like I told you in the last video, that we are missing a few elements. Now we will be starting with adding another element of them. If you see, I have stopped the game, and now if I run this again, the score in this section starts off with the same number that has been ended the game in the previous run. So now what we have to add is that every time when the game starts again, we will have to set the score to 0. So let's go into the variable section and drag out set my variable to 0 and select the score. So now every time we run the game, the score starts from the 0. Now the next thing, we want to add whenever the snake head is touching any edge, then the game should stop. So let's go into the head section, and now what we are going to add is an if then block. But first of all, let's take this piece of code here and get all these downwards. Now we are going to add an if then block just beneath this. Let's zoom in a bit. Now what we are going to do is that whenever the head is touching edge, let's select edge. Whenever the head is touching an edge, what we should do is to stop all processes, which means that the game will be stopped. So let's run this and see if that works or not. So it's eating apple and now it's going to hit the edge. See, the game has stopped and now the score is 4. So this part has been done. Now what we are again trying to do is to go into the body section, and here is our wait timer. Let's add the score in the wait timer so that the increase in the length of the snake depends on the score. Let's run this again and see, in the starting when the score was 0, the snake did not get large. But as soon as it started the score to 1 and then to 2 and then to 3, the snake is getting larger and larger. It is good that whenever the game is running again, before the snake has eaten any apple, its size should remain simple. But as he has eaten a particular apple, the increment in the size is huge. So what we are going to do is that we are going to drag out this score block and we are going to add a division block. And now we are going to divide the score by, let's say, we are going to divide the score by 5. Now let's run this again and let the snake eat few apples, and see, the size of the snake is not increasing that rapidly as it was in the previous run. You can also change this value to anything that you want, but the snake length should be precisely a balanced increment whenever it eats an apple. Now, as you can see, as the snake is going larger, every time it hits its own body, it passes through it. Now we are needing to add some logic that whenever the snake is touching its own body, the game should stop. Now the snake is passing through its body. So in order to do so, we are going to the costume section of the body and we are going to duplicate this costume. And after duplicating it, what we are going to do is to paint it. And we are going to select the brush and let's select a color, let's say this one, and now let's paint this a bit. So let's just draw any random lines, and once you have crossed the border here, what you can do is to just simply click on this undo button so that the changes are now undone. So that whenever you are drawing something in the paint editor, there is a fractional chance that you can overstep and what you have drawn is getting out of the size of the sprite. So undo is an option when you can remove your last saved changes. So let's get back on painting this sprite, and that will be all. So now this costume is ready. And in the code section, let's say we have to switch the costumes. So now in this code, whenever the touching of this color will happen, then the program will stop running. So now let's run this again and see what happens. The snake is eating the apple, and this costume which we have created is getting displayed. See? But there is one short change. If we are doing this, we will also have to add the touch color block. So now instead of adding two if blocks, what we can do is to just simply remove this and add an OR block. So just put the OR block here, and in the left section we can add touching edge, and in the right section we are going to add touching color. So let's drag down this touching color block. Now we will have to select a color, and we are going to select the color which is painted on the second costumes of the body. So in order to do so, let's go into the body section and drag out the show block. So first of all, let's remove the hide block from here and add the show block as well. And if I click the show block, see, this sprite is appearing. And now in the head section, let's select the color that we want to change. We can also increment or decrement these values in order to make a color, but that is a tricky thing. So instead of that, we are going to click on this icon, and now we are going to zoom in and pick this particular color. Now this color is picked, and if we run this, what we will be doing is every time the snake touches its own self, the game will be stopped. So let's run this, but before doing so, we will have to remove this show block, and we will going to set this hide block where it was. So let's run this again, and now what happening is that this block is already touching the head, because in the code every time the flag is clicked, it is going towards the head and it's touching it. So in order to get rid of that, what we are going to do is that we are going to switch the costume to costume 1 in the starting of the code. Costume 1 is this costume where this color is not there, so that in starting this costume will be touching the head, and as the snake goes larger in the size, this color will be touching. Now what we are going to do is to add another thing. We are going to switch the costume again to the second costume. Now what we are going to do is to again drag this switch costume block and put this here, and now we are selecting the costume 2. But before doing that, we will also need a weight block, and what this weight block will do is to create a possible section of the first costume so that the first and second will be distinguishable. So let's add this to 0.3 seconds of wait, and now let's run this. So as you can see, the 0.3 section cloning happened for the first costume, and then the cloning happened for the second costume. And if this snake touches its own body, the game stops at score 8. And also let's run this again and see whether this game stops when the head touches an edge. See, the game has stopped on the score 4. Till this game, in the previous 2 games, what we have did is that we have created a game over logic. Another sprite screen which had the game over logic. Now the assignment for this particular video for you is to create your own game over logic. We have already learned how to create a game over logic 2 times. So it will be easy for you, and you can also take guidance of the previous lectures if you miss a certain points. So keep your assignment, and now it's time to say sayonara, students.